All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of THP Strength. Today, we are going to be talking with one of the athletes that trains probably the hardest out, one of the hardest training athletes that I've ever coached, and also someone that is super consistent and diligent about the training, and that is Cami Colville. We also have Connor. Connor, say hi.
Hi, I'm Connor.
Isaiah and Hunter, you guys can say hi too.
Hello.
Hello.
Just because this is a podcast and people will be listening, they're not necessarily watching. So yeah, we'll get into it here, Cami. So Hunter was asking you a bit of these questions beforehand, but yeah, roughly how long have you been working with THP, and then where were you beforehand? Where are you now? What do your numbers look like? All that stuff.
So I started off back in April, so it's about 6.5 months now, I think. So I started off, I think you DM'd me through Instagram, we've kind of known each other for a bit. So you DM'd me off one of my stories because I had knee pain. So that was kind of a big reason with joining THP, was to help get rid of the knee pain. So that was back in April. And some of the numbers, so I started off with about a 100 kilo squat. And it's gone way up since then. It's gone to 110 now, and I think it's probably more than that as well. So see next time I
real
test
quick,
it.
just for people, for perspective, how much do you weigh, and what is that in pounds? Or I guess I can do the conversion for people in pounds. But what do you weigh, and how tall are you? Perfect.
So I'm 56.3 kilos, I think it was when I did that. So I think that's about 123 pounds roughly. And then the squat was 242.5 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So just under double body weight.
Yeah, what's actually interesting about that too, a lot of people don't know this. Whenever you see that standard, it starts kind of back from Brightest and the recommendations that he had for plyometrics, right? So it was look, you got to get this strong, at least 2 times body weight if you're going to start doing plyos. That's just a general recommendation. You're not going to see the same benefit if you start doing them way beforehand. But most people don't know most people don't know is that those squats, I believe, were to parallel. So when you start adding, 20 plus degrees of knee flexion to your squat and X number of displacement downwards, you're increasing the internal requirement to produce intramuscular force because you're at a disadvantage. You're at a mechanical disadvantage. So when you're talking about Cami's squat numbers, what do you think you could, or I guess keep that in mind, first off, if you're listening, and then second off, Cami, what do you think you could half squat? Probably don't know, you've never done it.
I'm not sure, I've never really pushed it. Maybe in the 130 to 140 range if I really kind of pushed it, I think. So 2.5 times body weight.
Yeah,
maybe
so that's
2.7.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that actually Cami is far beyond that 2 times body weight in the way of that metric. If you can get someone that squats 2 times body weight ass to grass, that's killer. I think Isaiah, for you, that's what, 330 or something like that, or 340?
355 around there.
355, and I would consider you to be one of the strongest jumpers I've ever seen. So a lot of people that look at those metrics sometimes fail to realize that isn't a half squat, not necessarily in a deep squat. And I've realized this through anecdote, as well as going back and watching some of the training videos from the Russians, actually, when they were doing the shock training. I don't know if it's from Berko Shansky. I'm sure you guys have seen those videos too. But Cami's 5'5", is that correct, Cami? 5'6", 5'5"?
Yeah, 5'5".
That's 5'5", and he's dunked on 9'11", 9'10 and a half. Is that right?
9'10 and a quarter.
9'10 and a quarter. So what's your reach?
My reach is 7'3.5".
7 what?
A long reach. 7'3.5".
7'3.5". And that is without fudging it whatsoever. For perspective, my reach is 7'11" and a half or something like that. And Isaiah's is 8'1". So Isaiah almost has, not a foot, but he's his reach is 10 inches higher than what Cami's is. So, if we took the rim and we were like, hey, let's lower it down 10 inches, what would you do on 9'2"? Can you get your head over the rim on 9'2"?
I mean, I maybe could. I've not tried it. Maybe I should.
It's always fun to put things in perspective like that. But the reason that one of the reasons why I reached out to Cami was because, first off, for those of you listening, Kimmy's a speed jumper, which means that he recovers his heel to his butt when he jumps off 1 foot. And that's first off, it's super uncommon to see short 1 foot jumpers. That like really doesn't happen. And then second off, to see a speed jumper is also incredibly uncommon. So you have someone, well, just in general uncommon. I guess you do usually see shorter guys that are speed jumpers. Like you see Janne Clausen, the Danish high jumper. He's a speed jumper. I think he's like, again, around the same height that you are. Stephen Holmes was 5'10" or whatever. He's a speed jumper, jumps off 1 foot. So when you see these shorter guys, I guess you can see Nick Briz. They're kind of like smaller in stature, usually have really thick calves, and generally they're speed jumpers. So for me, I think I had initially found Cammy in 2016 or 17, and I was just like watching you try to dunk on, I don't even know what it was, probably like 9 foot at the time. I don't even know.
Yeah.
And I just was watching him like, this kid's a speed jumper? I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, how is this kid a speed jumper? I've been trying to do this for the last 6 months, and I just see this looks like a 17-year-old doing this, and I'm like, how the hell is he figuring it out? He's half as strong as I am. He's training age is not very good at all. Like, he's not inherently good at plyos at the time. And I'm watching him speed jump perfectly. And I'm like, people are always saying that this is totally like the reason why I was so interested in Cammy is because I was like, everyone's like, well, this is totally physical. You just have to have the physical capabilities to do that. And I'm like, look, my numbers are significantly better than him, like relatively and in terms of absolutes. And I was like, it just doesn't make sense why he's a speed jumper and I'm not. So I became super interested in that. And started watching him train more and more, watching his technique. And I actually spent more time studying Cammy, Nick Briz, Janne Clausen during that period of time for probably the next 2 or so years. And then actually had the privilege to meet Cammy at dunk camp, which I would say you generally blew people away. I mean, Connor and Isaiah, you guys were there. Did you guys see the vert testing when Cammy was doing it?
So
Yes.
I didn't see the vert testing, but I just remember you jumping over the table, long way. That shit
Yeah,
was so
that
hype.
I mean, I saw the vert testing too, but the actual low rim contest was insane, and it wasn't because of just the low rim. Like, it was crazy to watch him jump.
Yeah.
And the table was the best part for sure.
So if you guys haven't seen this video, I think it went viral. Did it go viral, Cammy?
It went on Baller's Life, I think. I think Scotty posted it.
Yeah, which is awesome. And it actually did got a ton of views, I think. So basically, I think you just approached from the other side of the court. Did you jump from the foul line and ended up dunking on what?
It was
What's that?
literally 2 inches inside the foul line.
And what was the rim height? Was it 8'6" or something, or
I think it was
8
just
foot?
8 foot. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but it was still hella impressive
Yeah.
to see someone jump over a table and then dunk on any height is super impressive. Clearing the table and making it to the other side of the free throw line from the foul line is super difficult, especially when you're 5'5". So for me watching that, I was like, oh my gosh, this
I
kid
would
is.
bust my ass trying that.
Didn't you
Exactly.
also jump over a hurdle?
Yeah, it was 60 inches.
Yeah, and that was crazy.
60
How high
inches.
was how high? 60?
60, yeah, and I'm 65 inches.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about some more of these numbers. Let's talk about some of these numbers for perspective because people don't understand this. All right, so Cammy, what is your back squat again? 110, you said?
Yeah, 110.
110. You could probably half squat 130. Weighs 123 pounds. So in kilos, that's 242. Is that what that is?
What's in kilos for
For your deep back squat is 242.
deep back
So
squat is
so you're
120.
just a hair underneath 2 times body weight in an ass-to-grass squat. So for perspective, as you get lighter, relative strength goes up a little bit, but he's squatting incredibly deep and he's super light. So he's almost so far light that his relative strength is not peaked out. I think you see peak relative strength. Actually, you might be close. I don't know what the peak numbers are for your height. It's probably like 60 to 65 or something like that in weightlifters. So, maybe if you want to get your relative strength up, you could just keep gaining a little bit more mass, probably see a benefit. What's your power clean right now?
So I actually PR'd on that today. So
Let's go.
Hit 85 kilos, which is 187 pounds. So 1.5 times body weight.
Yeah, 187, 1.5 times body weight. So for perspective, the best I've ever done is 250, I think, and I weighed 180 at the time. So 250 divided by 180. So I was at 1.38. So Cammy is significantly more powerful than I am. That was a power clean, right? It wasn't a full clean?
Yeah, power clean.
Yeah. So again, these numbers, you have to make them relative to body weight. It's not just always absolute. So for his weight, pound for pound, is more powerful than me. Isaiah, what's your power clean? 270.
So I actually just did the numbers today. I did a 1.5 times body weight power clean, and I was like screaming my ass off.
There we go.
It was a power clean.
Yeah.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah,
Again.
I did 265, and I weigh 177. So.
Yeah. So that was today. That was a max, right? That was a daily max.
So our relative strength is actually super similar.
Yeah. In terms of the like the actual numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just put a
That's
disclaimer
crazy
out
to
there.
think about.
Everyone listening right now, this does not mean go out to the gym and try to throw up 1.5 times body weight on your power clean. Both of these athletes have worked up to this. This wasn't just like a.
Cammy and Isaiah are freaks. Like, for reference to all three of these guys, I do 1.2 times body weight, and that's like me screaming also. So don't
So my
go
screaming
throw up these
max,
numbers.
my screaming max is 138. Connor's is 12. Point. This is times body weight, right? Isaiah's is 1.5ish. Cammy's is 1.5. Hunter, do you even know what your power clean max is?
Well, Hunter's got a hurt back right now, so that exists.
Hunter, how did you hurt your back? Go ahead and disclose how you hurt your back for the listeners.
So what I just said, don't go into the gym and throw 1.5 times body weight for a power clean. John programmed me jump squats. I thought it'd be a good idea to see how heavy I could go and still get off the ground.
I think I put like 30% of your back squat
You said light.
for perspective.
I went 285.
What?
Yeah, one smart.
That's impressive.
No. It's impressive in the worst way.
You should probably
Correct.
pay attention to the numbers.
Yeah,
you know,
impressively
that I wrote down.
bad. So if you're listening, don't do that.
Just please follow the program.
Anytime I get hurt, John's always like, "Did you do what I said?" I was like, "No."
It's like, how'd you get hurt? It's like, well, I was going off program. It's like, well, I'm not really surprised you got hurt. Like,
And now we know why.
exactly. Yeah. So, Cammy, what was your standing vertical and then your approach vertical off 1 and 2 feet?
So my standing vertical, I tested it at 31.5, but I think it's probably closer to like 32, like on a vert tech. And I've done just under 36 on like a jump mat as well. So running vertical, that was 38, which was at dunk camp last year, but I've done 37.5. I did that back in September. And then 2 foot, I've not tested that in like 2 years, so like I think it was like 34 last time I tested it.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what that one's like. Your 2 foot technique is not very good, but you have very stiff tendons, so it makes sense.
John, can you speak, or Cammy, can you speak to the difference between why you might see that discrepancy between a Vertec and a jump mat vertical difference?
Yeah, so basically the jump mat, it's not as sensitive as like I don't know, like a force plate or something like that. So basically, like when you jump, you can also kind of like cheat it as well. So I try and like cheat it too. Like I try and like not cheat it essentially. But I think that's it. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd be
like
curious
the
to
cheating
see
that
why on the
Cammy's-
Vertec.
What
Go
is
ahead,
it?
Connor.
Oh, I was going to say the cheating Cammy is talking about for y'all is like on a jump mat, it starts counting as soon as it doesn't have pressure on it anymore. And then if you don't land with your legs in the same straight extended position that you took off in, it will not be accurate.
Yeah, and it also, some of the jump mats will start counting when your heels leave the ground, and others will start counting when your tippy toes leave the ground. So, you get a lot of time benefit if it starts counting when your heels leave the ground, because you have the time your heel is off the ground until your toes leave the ground. So it'll say your vertical is significantly higher. And if you compare jump mats to force plates, you see that over and over and over again. Or if you use the My Jump 2 app, you can see it as well. So, when Isaiah looks at his vertical on a jump mat, if he were to do an approach vertical on a jump mat, he'd probably test well above 50, especially the old school ones. The newer ones, like the Fusion Sport ones, those are super sensitive. So those ones you can't cheat. But if he were to do that, he wouldn't be able to land back on the mat. Let's say if he had like a 2-meter mat, 6-foot mat, and jumped off the mat and landed on it again, he probably would hit well over 50 on a jump mat, just because it's going to measure from when his heels leave the floor and when he lands, and you're not going to land straight up and down in the configuration that you took off. So that also would change the value quite a bit. I think Mick hit like some absurd value on a jump mat. And I mean, Mick's vertical is pretty high, but
Yeah, I think he hit like 42. But one thing I noticed as well, so the jump mat I've got is like one of the old ones. I think it's like Probotics jump mat or something like that.
yeah, it's
But,
like the one with the little slider on the side
Yeah.
of it, and yeah.
I did some like research into it though. Like I wanted to kind of like find out like what the kind of difference is. and I found it was roughly like 90 milliseconds is what it adds to your kind of like hang time, which is like a lot in terms of vertical anyway.
Yeah, which is pretty significant.
To say the least.
Yeah, and it also scales up accordingly. Like, I think if you have a higher jump, you actually have more of a discrepancy versus like a force plate. So that's also something else people don't understand. Anyways, yeah, so for perspective, Cammy's a freak. Let's talk about your sprint times now. And actually, this goes back to the training. And for those of you listening, this can be kind of a lesson to you guys. But first off, Cammy, what is your compliance like with the training? Like, how 1 to 10, how compliance meaning like how closely do you follow the training? How would you say your compliance is?
I'd say like probably like 9.5. Like I try and follow it like as strictly as possible. Sometimes I'll kind of like add in like a jump here and there just to kind of like warm up and like kind of like test myself for the day to see where I'm at. But usually I try and kind of like stay to the plan and not try and go off course too much.
Yeah. What do you think your max for back squat is right now, by the way? You never actually said. 115?
For me,
Yeah, what do you think you get it?
I think so. I did it on Monday because you guys planned for me to do it then. So I did 110 and I moved it in 1.35 seconds, like
Okay.
from a deep ass squat.
Yeah. What was the meters per second that equated to?
Meters per second. I think it was
Is it 0.7?
0.48 meters per
Okay.
second, like average meters per second.
So for perspective on my maxes, and the more elastic you are, the more powerful you are. Generally speaking, you can't get to those low velocities. So let's say you peak at 0.3 or something like that. That was average meters per second, I'm assuming. So if your average was 0.3 and your peak was 0.7 or something like that, I guess some people are around there. You probably have another, I don't know, maybe like 3 to, it really just depends on the person. What do you think? Maybe 3 to 5 kilos or something like that?
Maybe something like that, because I did try 120, but like just couldn't get it. Like I just bailed.
Well, that's a 22-pound jump, so that's like
It's not the best. Like,
you're supposed to go for a 1, and you can ask Isaiah. I had him do this. You go for a 1 kilo PR, and then from there you can make whatever jump you want to make. That's generally what I recommend. So if you go, and for those of you listening that want to know how to do max outs appropriately, what I recommend is you go 5 reps at a really low, super lightweight. Maybe you do some squats with the bar or something like that. Then I recommend going 4 at maybe 70%, 3 at 75 to 80, 2 at 85, and then you start your singles. So, you'd have 1 at 90, 1 at 95, and then the next thing I would do is I go 101%, because you don't want to tie your max. You should go 1 kilo more than your max. And then from there you can make whatever jump you want to make, preferably small jumps. Really from there it's a PR, so you can go to whatever you want. Some people like to make 5 kilo jumps. I personally like to make small jumps, so I'll go like 2 to 3 kilos, or I'll try to hit a goal weight. So for me it was 160 was what I was trying to back squat. So I would go, that's kg for perspective. So I would go up to like, I think my PR was 155, so I'd hit 156 and then I'd try 160. Or if my max was I think at the time it was like 145. I was like, oh, I'm going to hit 146 and then go 150. And then I hit 150. And then I was like, okay, next time I'm going to go 145, then go 155 or something like that. Because I know I can hit 150 and I'm not going to kill myself on that. So I'll try to make a bigger jump. So that's one recommendation that I give for people. If you kind of know where you're at least, and you have set goals that you're trying to hit, which Cammy sort of did, but 10 kilos is a hell of a jump. So
especially
in terms of your
relative
sprint
to
times,
the weight, like you got to realize
That's crazy.
that jump is the jump in weight is relative to the weight that you're using to start the jump from. So like if you're doing 100 kgs and you're trying to jump 10% of that, it's 10. I mean, pretty tough.
that's like going from, for Isaiah, that'd be like, we're going to go from 170 to 187. Like,
Well,
that'd be
what's
like,
funny? When Zay was here like a few weeks ago and he maxed out his front squat, he did that procedure that you just said, and he went like barely over, what was it, 325?
I did
Zay, pull the mic a little closer to your face, by the way.
325.
Yeah, and then he
Like-
jumped straight to 345.
Yeah,
So
which is,
Yeah. I also want to like mention the importance of warming up. So usually that's the procedure I do. Like if I'm gonna go like for a heavy single or a max out. Today I had like working out to like a really heavy single on front squat programmed in, and usually I would do that procedure, but I was trying to like rush and like get to the podcast. So I literally just did singles. Like I started 155, went straight to 205, which is a 50-pound jump, then 225, 245, 295, another 50-pound jump, and then 315. I failed it. I like couldn't get it up, and I've been able to do 315 like easy, fatigued like for multiple reps these last couple of weeks. Today like I like got it like a quarter of the way up, and then like I dropped it. I was like, well, that was a failure.
To be fair, you also didn't sleep last night.
Yeah.
And to like the other side of that too is like the mental aspect of like if you're rushing to be somewhere, you're not fully intentioned on like doing the lift to the best of your ability.
Yeah, but he was trying to catch up on sleep because he was out late last night. So he was, instead of a 30-minute nap, he took a 2-hour nap. So it was
I was so disoriented when I woke up today. Like I set an alarm, and then like I just woke up and I was like, wait, something's wrong. I looked at the time, it was 2 hours later.
Yeah. So back to Cammy here on your numbers. Let's talk about the sprint times. When you started working with us, what were your sprint times? How much were you training in general for sprinting, and what are they now?
Yeah, so I measured it when I first started with THP. I measured my sprints with just kind of like frame times. So I do it from like first like hand movement that I could see. And I think my best like 30 meter that I did at that point was about a 4:32 if I'm remembering rightly. And that was on like a track with like spikes on and everything.
That's from your first hand movement, right?
Yeah, that's
from your first hand movement. No, I'm saying that's from your first hand movement is when you started the timer, right?
Yeah, just from like first like visible kind of like hand movement.
Okay.
So 4:32 when I started, and then now I've clocked it at about a 4.02.
Okay, all right. For perspective, guys, for how fast this is that's from a 3-point, right?
Yeah, 3.7.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you some numbers. People, I think, realize, Isaiah, you know how fast I am, right? And I'm pretty fast on a track, you'd say.
Pretty fast. He'll blow the average Joe out of the water.
I blow the average Joe out of the water. Everyone thinks they're fast till they line up against me. That's usually what happens. Reference Austin Burke racing me 2 years ago, getting smoked.
Honestly, reference all of us. Like I thought I was fast. Austin thought he was fast. CJ thought he was fast. And
then they ran against me.
Until John came in.
I've seen John just randomly run, and I'm like, nope, not happening.
I'm pretty.
Hey, I got fastish though.
Okay, so Isaiah actually did. When he came and trained with me, he entered the hyperbolic time chamber and got significantly faster. But again, back to the numbers here. So for perspective, when I started training in 2015 for the decathlon, I think my best 30-meter sprint was a 4.25 from first hand movement, maybe 4.28. And I think so Cammy actually started pretty close to where I was. That was laser timing. And then I think by the end, I think I had clipped 4.13 on turf. And I was fast. I was very fast. I was running close to, relatively very fast. Not compared to track guys. I was not very fast. But I was closing in on that 7-second mark, which for a decathlete indoor is actually good if you have good jumps and pole vault. You can kind of mitigate that time a little bit. But I mean, even at ACCs, when I was coaching at Duke, there weren't a ton of guys breaking under 7 seconds. You're talking about Division I track. I mean, yeah, is it the strongest division? No. But it's good track and field. And I don't even know how many guys eclipsed that 7-second 60-meter mark. 7-second sprint in the 60. Me 115. Now is you said 402 is what you said?
Yeah, 4.02.
That's moving. If you can get under, so what I've seen, if you can get under 4 seconds in the 30 and you have good speed endurance, then you have a very good chance of breaking that 11-second mark in the in the 100-meter dash. I've actually seen guys run 1090s that barely break underneath that 4-second 30-meter time. So if you have good reaction time, good race, you have decent speed endurance, you could do it. Cammy's a little shorter, so I don't know what his top speeds are. Do you know what your fly times are?
I only know the 20 to 30 meter segment, so I've got like a free lap timer as well. So I clocked a 1.04 on the like 20 to 30 meter split.
That's still really good for that split. I'd be curious to see what you'd hit in an all-out split. If you can get that under a second, you're starting to get moving pretty quick. For perspective, again, guys, when you look at elite long jumpers, you're talking about guys that are under, or I mean, they could hit 10.8 in meters per second, which is like 9.92 or something like that over a 10 meter fly. Super fast. Usain Bolt is like at 0.8, like he's hitting 12 meters per second. So that's talking about the fastest guy in the world. We are not even close to that as humans, like in this chat. We're respectively good at our thing, but relatively in terms of speed, we're not even on that level. So when you're looking at Cammy's speed and how much he improved, it's insane. You're talking massive margins. You're talking almost, was that like 8%? And it's been 6-ish months or something like that. So his sprint time has gone way down. He is way faster, not even on the same planet in terms of speed. His bar speeds at given loads probably have gone way up. So if his max back squat was say 100, what was your max back squat when you started? You said 100?
Yeah, 100 kilos.
So now he could probably move that twice as fast as what he could, which means his rate of force development is significantly higher. His max strength is significantly higher, and his power clean is, which again is another indicator of rate of force development, is significantly higher, along with the fact that his 1 foot jumping, because you could say, in my opinion, the Vertec was leaning, but don't tell anyone, at dunk camp, is probably better or on par with that. And so we are seeing all of these metrics climb forward. And with that said, it's almost like, hey, there's a storm brewing. If you get as much adrenaline as Cammy had when he was at dunk camp and go back and retest that vertical, I would wager that he's probably going to test significantly higher. So Cammy, I guess, what is your lens on that? Do you agree with those statements? Do you disagree with those statements? What is your experience been like training with us with the results?
Yeah, no, it's been good. So I think as well, so like I tested like 37.5 back in September. So I drove down and like met up with a bunch of guys from the UK because a lot of us are kind of like dotted about the country. So it's kind of hard to get like a session in with everyone. But I had to drive down. So I drove down 6 hours the day before. And then I had a 2-hour drive on the day of the like testing, I guess, as well. So I had that, and there wasn't as much hype as dunk camp. Like there's just like so much hype at dunk camp. It's just kind of like hard to compare, I guess, to like just a regular Vertec test.
Yeah. So I think now it's going to be like very interesting when you get back in that environment with these new metrics. Because I think we talked about this on a previous podcast. Adrenaline is like massively important when you start talking about the arousal, excitement, arousal performance curve. The more you get into that zone for peak performance, you see crazy increases. So I think whenever Cammy starts getting around people that have never seen him jump before, or or people that maybe have seen him jump but it's been a while, I actually anticipate that he might really impress some people. So I'm super excited to see that. Other than that, I think I've kind of covered my questions on it, and maybe the last one I would say is, how was this last cycle? And in general, the planning, the periodization, how would you compare this to, I guess, what you've seen in the community? And you don't have to name drop or anything like that, but how do you view our training compared to the rest of the community?
Yeah, so I've never really trained, like, before. I just trained myself, like, through stuff that I'd learned. So I've never really trained.
Real quick, go into the details about what you were doing before us, because it was still good. It was still good, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay. How far back do you want me to go? Just like recent kind of?
Maybe within like 8 months of when you started working with us, or a year or something like that.
Yeah, so just before I started working with you, I was doing like a training cycle. So I basically wrote like a periodized training plan. So I worked from,
which,
like,
by the way, is
reps.
Real quick, that's far and above what most jump programs would do. Right there, he actually periodized his plan. That is already immediately better than most training plans out there. But go on.
Yeah, so I started off with like 6 reps in the first week, and then I worked up to basically like singles and like really kind of like low volume singles, and that really kind of like boosted my vertical up a lot doing that. So I just kind of like manipulate like the volumes and intensities, and that's how I was kind of training before I joined. So I had kind of I think I had a good training base before joining.
And then how much were you jumping? Like just in general, it seems like you jumped a lot, all like growing up.
So growing up, I didn't really do much jumping. I did a lot of like just different sports. So I did like so I did sports, I think like 4 days a week in like what we would call primary school over here, but you would call it like I think first to like seventh grade, so like middle school would it be or?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, yeah. So I did like a lot of sports. I did like so like as you guys would call it soccer, we call it football, but so soccer, I did lacrosse, I did like cross country, and I did like football again. I did football like 2 times a week, and then I just kind of like I'd love like playing in the playground and like just like running around and just having fun. Like I don't know, that's
Standard kid stuff.
yeah.
Okay, so then when did you really start jumping a lot? Like how old were you? It's been like what, 3? It has to be at least 3 years. I've been following you for at least 3 years. It's not like you're just like a greenhorn in on this.
So it was 2016. That's when I kind of really kind of got into it. I started to jump more like in like physical education and stuff at school, because like I saw one of my friends. He was like I think about like 6'1" at the time, and he like barely touched the basketball net because he's like because basketball's not really big over here, so people
Yeah,
aren't like.
and he can't jump. That's the biggest thing. He can't jump.
Yeah. So like I was like maybe like 4'11", like 5 foot at the time, and I was like, well, I don't know, why not try? So I just ran up, jumped off one, and like touched it barely. But yeah, that's kind of where
That's when it started.
What are you saying?
I said that's where it started. You realized, oh, I actually have a knack for this thing. Like I can actually jump a little bit.
Yeah,
You touched the rim?
Like fast forward a year.
Isaiah has a question.
Yeah.
It was you touched the rim?
No, the
No,
net.
this is the bottom of the net.
Oh, the net. Okay.
So he was
Yeah.
4'11", 4'11",
Yeah.
grabbing net. That's pretty good. His 6'1" friend couldn't.
Yeah, so then like fast forward a year, I kind of just like would jump just during like PE, so it'd be maybe like once or twice a week that I would jump and like just kind of like try and touch the net, try and touch higher. And then like a year later, so when I was 16, as I was saying, I touched like this 9'4" rim, I think it was, like barely skiffed it like at the end of PE. So had quite
Were
a
people
lot of
impressed? Were people like impressed for how short you were, like jumping that high?
Yeah, like I was known for like jumping like in school. That's what
People were like, this 5'5" kid, he's got bounce. He can't dunk yet, but he will.
Yeah.
Which is actually crazy, which is maybe the last piece. And then on this note, unless Isaiah and Connor, you guys have questions for him. So obviously working with us for, I guess it was what, 3-ish months or something like that. And then you got your first dunk on 9, 10 and a quarter.
It was like a month, I think.
It was like a month. This is crazy. So we took,
Yeah.
not we, but yes, we. So I viewed Cammy as like a project. I was like, look, this really short kid, I will get him to dunk. He is a speed jumper. I will make him better. Like, I will make him faster. I will make him stronger. I will make him more explosive. So we get Cammy in on it. And the first thing we do is just really get his knee right, which took, I mean, Cammy, it seemed like you were spending months trying to get that better. And then with us, it was like, look, give us about a month. We'll get your knee better. Got your knee better, which I would like to think I'm pretty good at. And then you started, I guess, had you even really trained at that point? Or you just kind of like went out there and did it?
So like what do you mean? Did I
Like you were just doing more or less the load management stuff. Like you hadn't really been pushing super hard in sprints or jumps or anything like that, right? How long after you got your knee right that you did that?
I think it was like, I don't know, like maybe a couple weeks or like a week even after that.
It's crazy. The same thing actually happened with Isaiah. After he got healthy, he, I think it was what, like took you, I don't even know how long. Your knee was really bad, like horrendously bad.
It was. Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Oh yeah, we can hear you. You turn up your gain a little bit if you want.
All right. I just realized like I was hearing you guys through my laptop and not my headphones this whole time. I'm kind of mad.
Hunter's facepalm. All right,
I turned it on. I was like, whoa, it sounds so good. So I think it took me 6 weeks to be able to start doing box jumps. And then maybe 2 weeks after that to start dunking. So it was like 2 months until I started being able to dunk again. Like after I started the rehab process.
Yeah. So I think it's like, back to the vertical thing though, what would you say your vertical increased within that first 2 or 3 weeks back to max effort jumping? Well, I guess like dunk camp was the first time. Dunk camp.
Yeah, dunk camp was the first time testing my vertical. But it went up. Like I could feel that I was jumping higher compared to before rehab. Like I improved my vertical just from the rehab itself.
Yeah, that's what exact same thing he just said. I don't know if you heard that, but he was like,
second dump camp, right?
No, this was the first dunk camp.
No, this is first dunk camp.
First dunk camp? Okay.
Yeah. So Isaiah was
Yeah.
hurt going into that, and it was the same exact thing with Cammy. It took Isaiah a little bit longer because I was still perfecting my craft, you know, for patella tendinopathy.
I think dunk camp was I think it was my second or third session, like, ever in 2 months.
Yeah. And it was like, look, we gotta speed this up. We just gotta get this kid jumping again because he's gotta show out.
We rushed it.
We did, and it worked sort of, but
I think we
it taught me a lot.
Talked about this at dunk
Well, we
camp
did
in
at the camp,
hotel room, John.
Yeah, I think we did, just like getting him back to normal. But it was crazy because it was like, look, he's back, and now he's actually jumping higher. And Cammy had the same exact response. And I think a lot of the time when you look at, there's a lot of other people that have sort of started to deal with jumper's knee. You know, I see it all the time, go through bios. People are like, oh, get your knees better, jumper's knee, DM me, all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I don't really care. Like, you know, we are the best at what we do for a reason. And just, if you're good at what you do, you don't really have to worry about it. But what oftentimes you see is, like, after looking at a lot of these protocols, there's no return to play in the truest sense. There's no return to max effort jumping. And a lot of people have a hard time building that back into a program. And as soon as they go back to jumping, you might do strength. People just think, oh, I'll just do strength work for months. And I think, Cammy, this is where your issue was, right? You're like, oh, I'll just do strength work for months. I'll get my squat way up. I'll get my deadlift way up. I'll get my clean way up, whatever else. And then when I come back to jumping, I just won't have pain. That's just how it's going to be. And if anyone has worked with me, you know that that's not how I address patella tendinopathy. To some degree, yes. But when you're really getting into it, there's another step or two that you need to progress back to that. And part of that is actually building into the jumping and doing it appropriately. And so Cammy experienced that. I'm not going to go into the details because that's why I have a business. But Cammy went through that protocol. Isaiah went through that protocol. I went through that protocol. And through the training, through that rehab, through that specificity that we were able to build in appropriate manners, you're able to see someone come back one week into training and then, you know, get their first dunk on 9, 10 and a quarter, 9, 10 and a half, which I don't know. Did that increase your buy-in, Cammy?
I think so, yeah. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Cammy also said he was going to do a review of the training, so he said he would say bad things about us too, and I'm curious to hear what he's got to say. I haven't heard anything bad yet, but did you put that video out officially? I haven't seen it.
I've not done it yet. I'm going to be doing it soon though.
Are you gonna talk shit?
Nah, don't worry.
Do it.
Don't worry.
It makes us better.
It
makes us better.
I saw someone actually did do like a review, but they didn't actually do the training, so I thought that was
we saw that. They just looked at 1 week of training and drew conclusions on our training modalities by looking at our very first week that we programmed for this individual.
Yeah.
Which is
and
super interesting too.
The reason they put the other program ahead of ours, they said that the other one was like more like fleshed out, like it had different variations and stuff. Meanwhile, we got like 50 million different cycles.
Yeah.
Like in the future.
It's like, yeah, and then we cater within that, and people are like, have no, like, unless you do it, you don't know that, you know what I mean? Unless like you've been doing it for a while. Like Cammy, you've seen iterations in, like, if you see the training on paper, you see it and you're like, oh, it looks okay. I mean, you can just look at it and you're like, oh, it's got squats, it's got cleans, it's got posterior chain, it's got sprints. But when you start to get into the minutia of it, I think that's when you go through it, I think that's when you start to see the levels of complexity. I don't know if that's been your experience with it, but at least that's what I think after having done it and coached it for years. So it's like interesting whenever other people are just like, it looks good, it's got good stuff, but you know, the product, and I'm like, dude, you don't even understand how much is actually like going into this process. There's like so much time and effort on my end, years and years and years, and it's not just like this thing I put together through my experience. Like, you're talking anecdotal evidence from every single client I've ever coached, their feedback, my own experiences, Isaiah's own experiences, the conglomeration of all that, having done everything in the you know, basically on the market, and then coming back and saying like, okay, what's the best product we can do? How can we make this better? And how can we continue to make it better through time? And then you look at the numbers and it's like, look, these are realistic. This is realistic progress, you know? This is someone who's
cool
well trained.
It's cool seeing the progression of how the programs you write has developed. Because I remember when you first came on the scene with like Austin, and I think you were training like Nico or something like that, and like
they couldn't handle it. It was too much.
Yeah, I remember it was just OD, like crazy. and then you
No, they're just
took me,
soft. They're just soft. That's all.
and then you took me through the rehab process, and then kind of trained me like around jump session. Then you started training other dunkers and stuff, and then right before the last time I started working with you officially, like for strictly jump training, not knee rehab, I remember Austin. He got on it like it was like a couple weeks before, and like he got on the training, and then he's like, bro, he's like, it's crazy, like the influence you've had on the training. I was like, what you mean? And he was like, now there's like isometrics before every workout. Like there's one dunk session per week. Like it says dunk session, all that stuff. I was like, oh, that's pretty dope. And then like a couple days after, I was like, yo, like put me on, John. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's cool seeing like that. That's what's cool, I think, about THP though, is like we're all continuously learning. Like we're doing continuing ed and stuff like that. Like John, he'll read something new about like some new research about jump training, and he'll think about a way to implement that with like certain athletes. And
like if people think that
really
John's Instagram posts are complicated when he tries to explain something, imagine that unfiltered and in like a call together as he like tries to teach us more so that we can continue to like provide better service. Like it's insane. I think that John posted a story the other day,
those.
and like Cammy is a good example of this, and so is Isaiah, and so am I. Like I will be. That the training has taken people from being good to great, and it's also taking great athletes to being even more elite. And
World class.
It's crazy because there's not an athlete that can't be catered to and brought up the spectrum of where they are jumping wise. Like it making someone who's good way better is so much harder than making just some random person a little better.
It's like, you know, if you have this dude that's never jumped a day and it's like newbie gains, dude. Newbie gains, you do any program, you're going to see newbie gains. It's like basic. And everyone here saw that. But when you start really getting into the minutia of things, you really start dialing in the training, you really start trying to figure out, okay, what are the things that are actually making a difference month to month, year to year? What are the things that are making people better for the type of jumper that they are? And how do I integrate those things all while keeping them healthy at the same time, which is also tough. Cammy, I know you've had issues with hamstring, and we had to build that back up accordingly. So, I mean, like that's a part of the training process, I think. You know, it's like, I don't know any super elite athlete that has never had an injury. I mean, that just at some point in their career.
I mean,
you
if
know
you're pushing it to the limits, sometimes it's going to break. But yeah, I mean, like to bring this full circle, Cammy, I'd love to know for the people that might be on the fence out there that are really, you know, deciding whether or not they want to jump on board. Do you have any words for these athletes out there?
Yeah, so since I've known John since I've known him over Instagram, I guess, since like 2018. Like I knew he had the like coaching service back then. It wasn't like really official, but he had like the service.
It existed.
The one thing I think now though is like I just wish that I did it sooner, because like I'd be at an even better level than I am now if I'd done it.
Are we paying you to say that? Are we paying you to say that?
No, I'm not getting endorsed, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean,
Unfortunately.
No, that's big though. Like I can't imagine where I'd be if like I had this when I was 16.
yeah, same. I mean, I played college baseball.
like-
I wish I had this in college. I mean, it's why I put my 13-year-old sister on John's program. I mean, she's a soccer player. Like, I got exposed to this, and I was like, oh, my God. If I would have started this my freshman year of high school, like, how much different would I have been? And I called up my parents, and I said, look, like, you don't get a discount, but you need to put Liza and Catherine on this program, like, ASAP. And they were like, okay.
And then you told them what the price
Tier 3,
was.
right now, sign them up. Let's make them freaks. And one plays golf, and she's a top 300 golfer in the world for her age. And the other is a
Oh, I didn't know it was in the world. I thought that was high school.
no in the world
Hey, like,
for her age.
I thought it was in the U.S. I'm sorry. I didn't know
for
that.
her age, she's top 300 in the world. And then the younger one is a pretty good soccer player, just looking to increase overall athleticism. And like, there was no doubt in my mind. Once I like really joined the team and got to take a look behind the scenes and see how legitimate everything was, I called my parents up immediately and said, "Look, stop paying for the in-person training. Like, pay John, get them freaky, and let's see how crazy things can get."
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
I feel like you guys are gassing me up. I don't know how to handle all this. I gotta get sweating over here.
Here, let me gas you up more, John. So, like, when I met John at the first dunk camp, like, Zay had just started with him, and I had been doing, you know, other programs. I've done so many programs in the last few years that it's, like, insane. And I've basically seen everything that's out there right now. And like watching Zay basically transform from being like pretty freaky to just giga freaky over the last year and a half, and then realizing like, oh man, he was my roommate. Like I could have just committed hard right then, and I could be a giga freak also. Like,
Yeah.
dang, like
Right.
I wasted
It's
a year and a
tough.
half. Not really.
It's a
Let's
hard,
not make
it's a
this
hard
an
pill to
infomercial
swallow.
for THP.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like that. No, it's not. And
Want
that's
to be
the thing
giga
too.
freaky?
The thing is, like, it's like perception versus reality. It's like, look, this is not perception. This is just reality. Is that the case for every athlete that stays on for 6 months to a year to 2 years? Actually, yes. Like, if you're gonna commit for that long, if you're in and you're really in, I will promise you that I will train you harder, more efficiently, and more science. I guess you could say science-backed, evidence-based than any other person in the space. Because if you were to compare me to the other professionals in the field and other sports or whatever else, like they would look at it and they'd be like, "Yeah, this is great, super robust." Great plan, whatever else. And you're talking about people that are working with Olympic sprinters. You're talking about people that are working with Olympic bobsled. So whenever like I am compared to people that are like, you know, in my opinion, I'm like, this is a joke. Like in our space, if you did this in my space, in my world, in track and field or elite weightlifting or, you know, bobsled or whatever, they would look at this program and they would laugh. And like, that's just reality. Like, so I don't know. It's kind of funny whenever you see those different lens, but a lot of people don't have the perspective or they don't understand reality. It's like, look, like this is reality.
don't
This is
know
like
what
you
you don't
have to
know.
train. Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I think it's also funny when people start to learn more, and then as they learn more, they realize like, oh, I'm just reading research, and everything I'm reading is just right in line with what I'm doing right now. Like Igor
It's funny
Daniel said that.
because I felt that way like extremely. I was like, oh, I really think that I'm like starting to get a grasp of what training needs to be. And then I've had some like long conversations with John, and now I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I'm still learning a lot.
Jeez,
All
I
right,
feel like
Cam,
you're-
you got any ending thoughts, ending comments you want to make?
Ending thoughts. Don't think
final
so.
remarks.
Yeah, any final remarks?
Dunk on
No
Zay.
final remarks.
Yeah, good dunk on Zay.
All right, guys. Well, on that note, we will close it out. So thanks for listening, guys. We didn't mean to make this an infomercial at all, but without further ado, if you're looking for training, go to THPStrength.com. You can sign up for training, and you'll have access to all of us as coaches. We do believe that we deliver one of the best services at a price that is literally equivalent to one personal training session, and we will give you 25 plus sessions in a month. So it's kind of unbeatable in that sense. So you guys are welcome to go check that out. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also Cammy, what's your at so we can shout you out?
Just Kami Dunks. That's that on like all social media platforms.
Check him out.
Just
When he
Cammy
says he
Dunks.
does Astagrass squats, it's no joke. And then
It is no joke. He's
Yeah.
very strong.
subscribe to the
Also,
podcast.
if
And
you're-
if you rate us 5 stars, take a screenshot, send it to us, and we'll shout you out on Instagram.
For sure.
So
All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.